My name is Jean. My story began when one day, we were sitting at the table eating and I overheard my parents talking about the black cat and its curse. They warned that you should not continue on your path if a black cat crosses in front of you. I didn't believe in any of it and didn't pay much attention to what they were saying. Later that evening, my sister, who was part of the gymnastics club, was training and my mom asked me to go pick her up. The club was located in another village. It was already dark outside, so I took my car and drove out of the garage. As I started my journey, a black cat sat in front of my car. I didn't pay much attention to it and continued on my way towards the village, which was 5 kilometers away. There were no streetlights and it was very dark. I was afraid that something might happen, and suddenly I heard a sound as if I had hit someone. I froze and looked in front of my car, but there was no one there. Then I looked in the rearview mirror and saw something. I decided to go and see what it was, but I was scared when I realized it was a body lying on the ground. I was alone on that road, and there were no other car. As I approached the body, I was surprised to find a beautiful girl covered with a black blanket. I became worried because I was certain that I didn't hit anything and nothing had passed in front of me. I picked up the body and placed it beside the road before continuing on my way to the club to pick up my sister. When I returned to where I had left the body, it was gone, and I couldn't explain what had happened. As I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw the scary face of an old woman. I screamed and got out of the car. My sister asked me what was wrong, and I told her the story. She then told our mother. That night, I couldn't sleep, and I had many nightmares about the old woman's face speaking in a horrible language and telling me, "Now you know the curse of the black cat." It continues every day in my nightmares. My mother decided to call a pastor to our house, but I was hesitant to accept it that I think that it might be helpful to speak with a mental health professional or counselor. Until now, I am still unsure about what to do. What do you think? Can you give me some advice? Thank you for listening to my story. Don't forget to subscribe to encourage me to do the best. In the small, isolated village of Ravenwood, there was an old motel that had been abandoned for years. The locals whispered of strange occurrences that had taken place within its walls, of guests who had disappeared without a trace, and of an eerie room that nobody dared to enter. One day, a young couple on a road trip stumbled upon the motel and decided to stay the night. The owner, an old man with a haggard appearance, reluctantly gave them a key to the only available room, warning them to steer clear of the abandoned room down the hall. The couple entered their room and noticed something strange about it. There were no windows, and the air felt cold and damp. The walls were lined with an old, worn wallpaper that had begun to peel, revealing blackened plaster beneath it. As night fell, the couple started to hear strange noises coming from the room next door. The sounds grew louder, like something was clawing at the walls. Suddenly, the door to the abandoned room slowly creaked open. The couple could see nothing, but darkness beyond the threshold. They could feel a presence watching them from within the room. They ignored all that and continued their fantasy night, but next day they will suffer in this room. As the night wore on, the young couple lay in their bed, trying to ignore the strange noises that emanated from the abandoned room down the hall. But the sounds grew louder and more unnerving, as if something was scratching at the walls or shuffling across the floor. The couple was plagued by a series of horrific nightmares. They saw grotesque visions of monsters and demons lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce on them. They woke up several times throughout the night, drenched in sweat and shaking with fear. Suddenly, the room grew cold, and a sense of dread descended upon the couple. They heard a faint whispering sound, like the rustle of leaves, coming from the abandoned room. The couple felt as if they were being watched by an unseen presence. Then, the door to the abandoned room slowly creaked open. The couple could sense a malevolent energy emanating from within the room, as if something was beckoning them to enter. Despite their fear, the couple couldn't resist the compulsion to investigate. They slowly made their way to the abandoned room, the hairs on the back of their necks standing on end. As they peered into the room, their worst fears were confirmed. They saw a grotesque figure, with matted hair and a twisted, malevolent expression, lurking in the shadows. The figure beckoned to them, as if inviting them to join it in the darkness. The couple screamed in terror and fled back to their room, slamming the door shut behind them. But the malevolent presence lingered, and they could feel it watching them from beyond the walls. As dawn broke, the couple fled the motel, their nerves shattered and their sanity in doubt. They vowed never to speak of their experience again, but the memory of the abandoned room and its horrors haunted them for the rest of their days. Whatever the truth may be, the old motel in Ravenwood still stands, a testament to the horrors that lurk within its walls. And the room down the hall remains, waiting for its next victim to stumble upon its secrets. Marie was a diligent secretary who worked in a large company. She loved her work and took pleasure in organizing her office with care. But for some time, a disturbing man had been following her out of the office. He was staring at her insistently, and that made her very uncomfortable. One evening, as she was returning home, Marie realized that the man had followed her. She quickened her pace, but he continued to follow her. She tried to hide in a small alley, but he quickly found her. He approached her and whispered in her ear that he had been following her for a long time and that he wanted to know her. Terrified, Marie started to run, but the man caught up with her easily. He pinned her against a wall and tried to force kiss her. Marie struggled and managed to escape. She rushed home, but as she opened the door, she saw the man come in through the window. Marie hid in the cellar and began to think about what she should do. She knew she couldn't stay there forever, but she was afraid to come out. She made the number 911. Suddenly, she heard a dull noise coming from the upper floor. She then realized that the man had begun to search her in a house. Marie was afraid, but she was also angry. She didn't want to let it go and decided to fight. She kicked the man and managed to escape from his grip. She ran to the door, but the man chased her down the street. She screamed for help, but no one came. The man grabbed her and hit her hard. Marie suddenly felt very weak and collapsed on the floor. That's when the neighbors arrived. They had heard Marie's cries, and called the police. The man tried to flee, but the police arrived and caught him quickly. Marie was taken to hospital for treatment and spent several weeks recovering from her injuries. This traumatic experience had scarred Marie for life, but she was not let down. She decided to take self-defense classes and work on her self-confidence. She had survived this attack and she was determined never to find herself in a similar situation. Marie was relieved to see that everything was finally over. She had managed to get out of this difficult situation thanks to her courage and her composure. Since this incident, Marie is always careful not to go home alone at night and has learned to defend herself. She also took self-defense classes to be ready in case of danger. But she doesn't regret overcoming this difficult ordeal, as she is now stronger and more confident than ever.